go through the database. Okay, here are few more permission labels. Okay, if you see that the last time I wanted to grant the update permission or grant update permission to add student to account, I used a keyword which is grant, right? So the permission can be granted, revoked, and denied. Okay, there are 6 keywords that you can use: grant, revoke. That means that you are revoking the permission, and you are denying the permission. Okay, deny will have the highest priority. Okay, if you have granted a permission and if you are denied a permission, deny will have a highest priority. Revoke the permission, that means that you are completely revoking the permission. These permissions can be granted on table basis as well. You can grant, select, insert, update, and delete permission directly on the table. Similarly, you can grant, alter, control, execute, and view definition permission on the stored procedure and function. Okay, view definition is a role which will allow the users to see the definition of the view or stored procedure. Okay, definition means the schema. It can see how the stored procedure is created, and the schema of that it will, if you have the view definition permission. Permission which are granted or permission which can be used. Permission which are denied or permission which cannot be used. Okay, permission which are revoked, remove any grant or deny which has been excluded. So revoke means it will completely revoke the permission. Deny means it will deny the permission if the user cannot use that authorization. And grant means granting the permissions. Okay. Now this is one thing, that execute as user. Okay, we'll be seeing this as in one example. Okay, while we'll be discussing about dynamic data masking, we'll be seeing those things here. So basically, execute as a user mentions that to execute a script with the context of another user. Okay, you can execute that. You can create a new user with login or without login. And if you type execute as user or execute as login, then that will allow you to execute a set of code with the context of another user. Okay, so that is the capability that you can. There are some permissions that let's go through it one by one. Select permission. I know, I believe that you already know. Select permission will basically allow you to select records from the table, and insert will allow you to insert. Update will allow you to update records. Delete will allow you to delete the records from the table. Okay, there is differences between delete and drop. Okay, though the meaning is same, dropping and dropping. Delete means dropping rows from a table. Dropping means dropping the table itself. Okay, so these are two different permissions. Okay, delete means allow existing rows within the object to be deleted. Okay, and drop means you can completely drop the table, and or you can completely drop the database. So drop is an DDL command, data definition language. Okay, create, alter, and drop. Delete is an DML command, which is data manipulation language, because you can only manipulate with the data. You can delete data. Now, addition to those permission, you have control and view definition permission and view change tracking permission. Okay, so control permission gives all rights to the object. Okay, by default, if you are creating a user, it will get the control permission. And view definition will allow the user to ability to see the definition of objects. That means that if I grant you a view definition permission on a table, then you will be able to see the schema definition of that table. Okay, how the table is built. Similarly, if I grant you permission view definition on a stored procedure, then you will be able to see that how the stored procedure is built. What is the definition of the stored procedure? Okay, these are few other permissions that you can have: alter, control, execute, and view definition, which we have already discussed. Now, this is a major concept, which is ownership chaining. Okay, what it will do, for an example, okay, you get that out. Okay, for an example, I have granted you a permission. Okay, there is a user X. Okay, this X user has been, I have only granted this X user to run a stored procedure. Okay, stored procedure Y. Okay, this X user has permission to execute stored procedure. Okay, nothing else. This X does not have any other permission. In the definition of this stored procedure interacts with 3 tables. Okay, let's say L, N, and Q. Okay, this stored procedure interacts with these 3 tables to compute something or to generate the output. This X only has the execute permission in the stored procedure, but the X does not have any permission on these tables. Okay, what will happen? Will the X will be able to run the stored procedure, or it will fail? if the X will try to start executing the stored procedure, will this stored procedure will work or it will fail? What do you think, Ashish? Stored procedure uses three tables inside its definition, maybe joining these three tables to give out some results. And the X user does not have direct access to the these three tables. It only has access to execute the stored procedure. So what will happen? It will run. It can execute the stored procedure, or it will fail, saying that you do not have sufficient permission. Exactly. So that is what exactly we expect, that if I have given a permission on stored procedure Y, then it should only execute the stored procedure. Now if the stored procedure itself is reference to some table, then it should not allow. But there is an exception. So this is true. It should not allow, but there is an exception, okay, which is known as ownership change. Okay. If the owner of the stored procedure and the owner of this table is same. Okay, let's say owner of this table are DBO and owner of these tables are DBO, then even though X does not have direct access to this table, he will be able to execute this stored procedure. Okay, and that is what known as ownership change. So, sorry, Kasif, I'm not getting your voice actually very clear.
I mean to say, why a schema if like DBO is a schema, right? And I'm not getting in this. Owner, what do you mean by owner? Like, if is
Okay. So I'll tell you what is that owner is. So in SQL Server, whatever you create, it have a owner. Okay. So for an example, let's say I create a database. Let's say this one. Okay, migrated DB. If I right click here and go to properties, the permission, and then this one. Okay, you can see that we have a owner here, okay, which is my login ID wherever I created this database. Okay, so whoever has created this database with whatever login ID, he will be by default the owner of that object. Okay, you can see that the owner of database, if the owner is a unique identifier, it likely means the owner is the Azure activity. Okay, so that's fine. So every object that you create in SQL Server has a owner. Okay, it can be changed. Okay, it's not a big deal. But the thing is that if the owners are same while you are executing a stored procedure and you just have the access to stored procedure, but you do not have access to the tables. Okay, then if the owner is same, still the stored procedure will get executed, and that is what known as the ownership chain. It will understand that hey, the owners are same for these tables and for this stored procedure, so maybe he is accessing the right thing. But if the owners are different, then it will not allow you to execute the procedure. This is what ownership changing is, and you will definitely get a question on this in your DP300 exam. Okay, you will get a question asking that, asking the same example. If you have a stored procedure and you do not have permission to the underlying tables, but you have permission to execute the stored procedure, then what concept or what is that principle that allows you to still execute the stored procedure even not having the permission to the table, and that is what the ownership chaining is. Okay, so one thing that here is what we call as dynamic SQL. Okay, so you can run select statement or you can have some dynamic SQL generated. What we mean by dynamic SQL? Let me show you that one. Okay, for an example, imported university. So I do not have. I have select option. So if I run this one, select star from sys.databases. Okay, so sys.databases is a DMV or dynamic management view or a system table. Okay, which gives you metadata about all your databases in the system. Okay, you can see that all the database name, their owner's ID. Okay, the create date, compatibility, collection, and everything it gives. Okay, so for an example, let's say I want just the name column from this sys.databases. Okay, so select name from sys.databases. So I'm just getting all the databases name that I have here. Okay, so this is the normal statement. This is a normal SQL statement. What is dynamic SQL statement? If I try to modify these names with something extra within the same statement. Okay, for an example, let's say I will do something like that. Select.
okay, so you are writing something there. I said you are writing the last bit.
Sorry. Oh, okay. No. I was writing hello. You thought that I'm telling hello to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that, and what I'm doing is I'm converting into some dynamic statement. Okay, I'm writing select hello plus is though an arithmetic operation, it can also be used to concatenate strings. Okay, and here I'm giving some space and name. Okay, so if I run that, So I can use the plus here. You can see and what I get here is that let's say if I run both of them, you can see that the first statement which generates the SQL statement, I get only master database name. Here I'm getting hello master, hello temp.db, whatever. So these are the dynamic SQL in the statement. Okay. So what is the benefit of using dynamic SQL? It can give you a quick access on that how you want to display your result. Okay. And if you want to generate some statement like backup, okay, you can see that you can see backup database name, it will generate all the statement together for you. Okay. But it has a demerit as well. Dynamic SQLs are more vulnerable to threat protections, okay, or more vulnerable for SQL injections, okay. So it's always for an application perspective, it's not very recommendable to use dynamic SQL in their applications. Rather than that, usually application users use clusters. Now the last thing in the slide is that the last thing in the authorization and authentication slide is about the least privilege, okay. What this least privilege means, the concept of least privilege says that whatever the least permission is required for a user to perform his job, you should only give the least possible privilege to that, okay? Not more than that, not less than that, okay? For an example, let's imagine you have a university, okay. In university there are multiple departments. You have your etc department, mechanical department, then you have your library, you have your finance department, right? You have many departments, right? The mechanical department has nothing to do with the person who falls into the etc department, right? So what you can do is you can only grant permission for the mechanical HOD to see mechanical student, not the ETC student. Okay, if there is two different tables for ETC and mechanical, and again the year-wise table for mechanical first year and ETC first year, then the admin or the HOD should only be able, the mechanical HOD should only be granted permission on the mechanical table, not on the ETC table, because he doesn't have to do anything, right? So that is what the least privilege method means for, okay. And if you think about a banking sector also, that is same for the banking sector, that if whatever permission is needed, you just assign those permission. Don't assign anything extra. Don't assign anything add-on permission to that, okay. Whatever permission is sufficient to give you the access, that is that is something that you can access, and that is what the least privilege method is. Okay, we have a quick data, another knowledge check here, which says that which permission allows the user to perform any operation against a database object. Control, delete, view definition. Okay, that's correct. Which database object can be granted insert access? Function, tables, procedures. From which object you can grant insert permission? Sorry?
Tables.
Exactly. Function and procedure that those are functions and those are procedures, right? We cannot insert anything to function and procedures. The third option, which feature allows the user to execute a stored procedure even if he does not have permission to access the table referenced in the stored procedure?
Ownership chaining.
Exactly. That is ownership chaining. Ownership chaining is something that allows you to access the run the stored procedure even if you do not have permission to run the even if you do not have permission to the underlying table.